Psychology, first semester session number 6. Today the topic is Gestalt laws of perceptual organization. Principles of perceptual organization. The works of Gestalt psychologists have suggested that human beings have an inborn tendency to organize sensory information into meaningful patterns, which are developed further through experience. They develop certain principles which govern our perceptual organizations. Gestalt laws of organization is a series of principles is describe how we organize bit and piece of information into meaningful to wholeness. Gestalt psychology was founded by German thinkers Max Wertheimer, Wolfgang Kohler, and Kurt Kofer and focused on how people interpret the world. The Gestalt perspective formed partially as a response to the structuralism of William Owen, who focused on breaking down mental events and experience to the smallest elements. These principles are often referred to the law of perceptual organizations. However, it is a very important to note that Gestalt psychologists call these phenomenal laws. A more accurate term would be principles of perceptual organization. These principles are much like heuristic and which are mental shortcuts for solving problems. The first is figure and ground relationship. According to this principle, human beings have a tendency to perceive object against a background, that is to say that we seldom see object isolations. This is an important quality of the perceptual process which involves the distinguished figure from the background. For example, in this figure, you see a white against a black background. White across say refer to a figure with several characteristics that distinguish it from the background. It is seen a single unit with clearly defined boundaries, and so that stands the projecting from the background. In contrast, the ground is less well defined. It seems to be a behind figure. It appears to continuous with no definite boundaries, though there are boundaries in diagrams. Counters in perception. A counter is the boundary between a figure and its background or background when boundaries between the figure and ground are not clearly defined. The viewer's perception fluctuate between the two because this phenomenon known as figure ground reversal. Some pictures can be seen in different ways depending on which part of the perceived figure in which as grown face was pictured and as an example. According to this, the principles any figure can be perceived more meaningfully in a background and a figure cannot be separated from the background. For example, letter written with a white chalk piece of perceived clearly in the background of a blackboard. Gestalt's law of similarity. This law states that there is a tendency to the similarly of objects in group. For example, most people perceive the second figure horizontally top down as a line dashed and dots, not vertically left right as columns of alternate dashes and dots. Gestalt law of pregnancy. The word pregnancy in German term meaning good figure. The law of pregnancy sometimes is referred to good figure and law of simplicity and this law holds that the object is an environment to see in that makes to appear as a possible. Gestalt law of proximity. According to the law of proximity, we have a tendency to group objects close to one another. For example, most people will perceive the nine lines as four pairs and an extra line at the right because of the relative proximity or nearest of the pairs of lines. Gestalt law of continuity. The law of continuity holds that the points that are connected by straight or curving lines are seen in a way that follows the smoothest path rather than seeing separates lines and angles. Lines are seen as a belonging together. A continue a pattern or directions tend to be a group together. As a part of the pattern, hence we see curved line and a straight line. However, we do not see a straight line with a small semicircles and either side are line above and below it. According to the law of closure, things are grouped together if they seem to complete some entity. See, the law of closure states that we have a tendency to fill the missing parts of a figure. Here in the third figure, we tend to see a circle rather than a series of dashes successfully marked in a circle. The law of common region, this Gestalt law of perceptual organization, suggests that the elements that are grouped together within the same region are space tend to be grouped together. The Gestalt laws of perceptual organization present a set of principles for understanding some of the ways in which the perception move. Recent research continues to offer insights into perception and how we see the world. Laws of symmetry. According to the law of symmetry, we have tendency to organize stimuli into a symmetrical figure. We are much more likely to perceive this as a row of four figures rather than a row of eight figures. These are the reference for present session. For our upper experiment 2011 is understanding psychology. The other thing is Hilger, Richard and Atkinson and Rita Atkinson in the year of 1975. That's it. That is introduction of psychology.